Warning. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat involves the discussion of horror and suspense movies. These movies often include violent, frightening, and disturbing content. Also, we sometimes discuss ladies and their lovely physical attributes, and we sometimes discuss topics considered naughty to talk about in polite company. This program is intended for audiences over the age of 18. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, everybody, it's 9 a.m. Time to start the weekly production. And nobody's here. Well, Edgar's here, but nobody else is here. Edgar, is there a donut truck outside or something? Where is everybody?
It appears that Steve, as well as all of the other cats, walked out of the studio earlier this morning. Apparently they are unhappy that the show has featured what Steve describes as, quote, an inordinate number of dog-centric film selections, end quote.
Oh, crap. Crap. Okay, Okay, Edgar, you're already on the schedule to do Monster Chat this week. Get to work on that, and I'll need you to put together an intro and an outro just in case. They're probably over at Roy Rogers getting breakfast. I'll head over and get this sorted out before word gets back to headquarters, okay? Oh, crap. That's headquarters on the phone. Crap. Good morning, this is Carl speaking.
Good morning, Carl. This is Helen Trash Banda calling from PBDC TV headquarters.
Well, good morning, Helen. How is everything in Transylvania?
Well, it's vampire bat season, so my allergies are acting up, but that's not why I called. Are you aware that your entire cast has engaged in an illegal work stoppage?
Well, it's not the entire cast. Edgar's here, and he's already working on this week's Monster Chat segment.
I don't see how that makes things better.
Helen, you know you're on speaker, and he's right here.
You need to get this situation under control immediately.
I'm already on it. Don't worry, I'm already on it. Don't worry. They're just acting out. Once they've had their fill of pancakes and chicken biscuits, they'll be in a better mood. They'll be right back at work.
Carl, let me break this down for you. Mother-in-law, Mort may be a fan of Steve the Cat, but I am not.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that, Helen.
There are a number of executives such as myself, including several members of the board, who feel that you cannot control the members of your cast.
Oh, no, that's not true. Sure, they act out a little bit, but they're artists. They're going to be a little bit temperamental. That's just the way it is. There's always a few bumps, but we always get the show out on time.
This is not the first time the PBDC TV Human Resources Department has been forced to interrupt our afternoon wine and hot tub time in order to disapprove of the behavior of your cast.
I'm sorry, did you just say wine and hot tub time?
I feel that you could benefit from some direct, on-site supervision.
Oh, no. That's totally unnecessary.
I will be dispatching somebody from headquarters tomorrow. She should arrive in time to oversee next week's show. In the meantime, I need you to get this week's show back on the rails.
Helen, I'm already on it. It's already taken care of. I don't see any need for you to send anyone all the way out here.
Carl, believe me when I tell you that I really don't care. Goodbye, Carl.
Well, that can't be good. Edgar, get into the studio and start laying down the audio for an intro and an outro. I'll start throwing some visuals together for Monster Chat, and I guess we'll have to figure out the rest as we go. Do me a favor and roll the opening credits.
Hello and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, the place where we have fun discussing horror movies. I am your special guest host, Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus. Steve the Cat is unavailable to host the show this week, as he is engaged in a labor dispute with management over the creative direction of the show. It seems that he does not approve of tonight's choice of films, which includes a pair of movies about werewolves. It seems that Steve's delicate feline sensibilities are offended by what he sees as the filmmaking industry's preference for creature feature monsters that favor dogs, as opposed to cats. They say that the show must go on, and so I will be hosting the show with the assistance of Carl the camera monkey and an assortment of non-union replacement workers. We are confident that there will be no degradation in quality when compared to earlier episodes of the show. With that, we shall get started. Tonight's show should be very entertaining and we hope you enjoy it. We thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Now here we go. Everyone grab your pencils and notebooks, it's time for Steve's vocabulary lesson.
Class is in session. Hello everybody and welcome to Steve's vocabulary lesson. This is Carl the camera monkey in the control booth. As you are no doubt aware, Steve the cat is not available to do the vocabulary lesson this week, so we have brought in a special guest host for you. He is a friend of the program. He is our expert on alien abductions and an all-around conspiracy enthusiast. Please welcome published author Crimson Meerkat.
Hello, and welcome to Steve's vocabulary lesson. This is your guest host. My name is... Actually, you don't need to know my name. Just call me Crimson Meerkat. Yes, that's my code name, Crimson Meerkat. You don't need to know my real name. You don't need to know where I live. I've been brought in to help with the vocabulary lesson this week because Steve is unavailable, so apparently there's 4 words. Let's get to them. First word is angler fishing. You know, I'm a professional writer, and I have never run across this term angler fishing. Apparently this is a noun that refers to the action of walking about in a dark and dangerous situation with a flashlight but no other weapons, thus inadvertently using the flashlight as a lure to attract predators. Oh, I see. I get it. This is humor. This is supposed to be funny. Let me tell you, this isn't funny. When you're walking around in your backyard with a flashlight and you attract the attention of aliens and they decide that they take an interest in your private regions and... Hey,
Crimson Meerkat, this is Carl in the control booth. You're getting a little off topic, buddy. I need you to get back on script.
Okay, fine. I'll get back on script. Second word is bambified. Bambified is an adjective describing the state of being petrified or immobilized by fear to the point of being unable to do anything except stare in wide-eyed terror, such as a deer staring at oncoming headlights. Oh, we've all been there. You know, sometimes those aliens have hypnotic powers and they can...
Getting off the script again, buddy.
Okay, fine. I'll get back on script.
Do you not want this job? Because I could always save the $8 and do it myself.
Yes, I do want to get paid. I do need the money. I do like money. Ever since my apartment burned down, I've been living in a refrigerator box down by the river. I really need some money to find a new place to live. It's no so bad down there, man. Okay, third word. Third word is burking. Burking? The hell is burking? Burking is the action of betraying your fellow characters in a horror movie, usually by locking them out of a safe area or otherwise attempting to sacrifice them in an effort to save one's own skin. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, I see. The term burking is derived from the name of the character Carter Burke in Aliens. Oh, well, there you go. I've never watched the movie Aliens. Are you kidding? Why would I want to watch that? I live that. And finally, hot air ballooning. Hot air ballooning? This is the action of levitating and floating around the room, or appearing to levitate and float around the room, because an unseen creature or supernatural force has a grip on you. The creature or force does not necessarily have to be invisible, just unseen, such as when a creature off-screen or on the other side of a doorway has a grip on a character's leg and lifts the character off of the floor. Okay, now guys, this isn't funny. I have been abducted by aliens no fewer than 17 times, and let me tell you, when they levitate you off of the bed, it is terrifying, and I don't see how this is funny. I don't get it. I've made my appearance. I've done your vocabulary lesson. Give me my appearance money. I'm out of here. Thank you very much.
Okay then, there you have it, Steve's vocabulary lesson for this week. Wait, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Hang on a second. Dang it! Sorry, Guinevere normally produces this segment. Hang on. Over here. I think I've got it. Hang on. That's got it. Okay, go ahead, Edgar.
Hello, and welcome to Monster Chat. I am your host, Professor Fluffosaurus. In tonight's episode we will discuss the complex and fascinating history of werewolves. Werewolves are members of the lycanthrope family. Under normal circumstances they are indistinguishable from regular humans. However, on the 3 nights out of each month when the moon is full, werewolves undergo a transformation process that changes them into giant, bloodthirsty beasts. Werewolves are the most well-known members of the lycanthrope family, though there are many other varieties of lycanthrope. These include the werebear, were-tiger, were-panda, were-noceros, and the aquatic-dwelling were-racuda. But those are stories for another time. As with so many elements of the monster community, the history of werewolves goes back to the Mesolithic era and a caveman named Grog Wilkinson. From our earlier lessons we know that Grog was history's first clown, and that he founded the Wilkinson Institute for Clown Arts, a mysterious organization that still exists even today. In the early days of the Wilkinson Institute's existence times were good, but crowds eventually became bored with a show that consisted entirely of juggling clowns and a few woolly mammoths. Eager to expand the appeal of his show, Grog undertook a process of adopting young wolves and training them to perform acrobatic tricks while wearing amusing costumes. Grog thus initiated the process of domesticating wolves, leading to the proliferation of different breeds of dog that roam the planet today. The bond between dogs and their human counterparts grew stronger over the centuries, eventually leading to dogs being described as man's best friend. In fact, the bond between humans and dogs became a form of love. The results of this were sadly predictable. As one might expect, when a man loves a dog very much—
Whoa! No! Stop! Edgar, I am begging you, do not say what I think you are about to say.
Carl, I'm sorry, but the public needs to know the truth. As I was saying, when a man loves a dog very much—
No! Stop! Edgar, so help me God if you say what you're about to say and get our show permanently banned from social media. I swear to you, I will personally serve you up to fancy on a platter with a side of garlic bread.
Carl, your plebeian contempt for academic discourse is well established, but this is my show and I must ask that you allow me to proceed with my lesson. As I was saying, when a man loves a dog very much, he sometimes invites the dog to live inside his home. Which, of course, leads to the problem of where the dog is supposed to take care of business related to routine biological functions. Humans thus developed the tradition of taking dogs for a walk on leashes several times a day to alleviate this problem. It was while on one of these walks that a young actor named Michael Landon was bitten by a radioactive wolf, thus becoming history's first werewolf.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry. I thought you were going somewhere else with all of this.
Carl, please get your mind out of the gutter. I'm an academic and not a pornographer. Now, as I was saying, having been bitten by a radioactive wolf, actor Michael Landon became history's first werewolf, eventually siring other werewolves to produce the population that exists today. You may recall that, in one of last season's episodes, we established that vampires are a medium-sized species of fire-breathing kaiju, with 2 heads and 6 arms. Throughout history there has been a long and famous rivalry between werewolves and vampires. This is the result of incompatibility between the wolf's well-established love of fetching sticks and the vampire's vulnerability to wooden stakes, which has led to unfortunate accidents over the years. Although vampires typically are much larger than werewolves, there have been an assortment of jumbo-sized werewolves over the years that have been able to engage vampires in raucous hand-to-hand kaiju battles. The Chicago Fire of 1871 is well known to have been initiated by a kaiju battle between vampire Vladimir the Meatpacker and a werewolf known only as Grover, in which a stray blast of Vladimir's fiery breath ignited a downtown bakery. For many years this fire was blamed upon a cow owned by one Mrs. O'Leary, but we now know this was all a propaganda effort initiated by the Vampire Anti-Defamation League. Similarly, although no photographic records exist, It is widely believed that the Tunguska Forest event of 1908 was the result of Vladimir the Meat Packer being body slammed by Grover in a rematch event.
Hey, Edgar? How could werewolves have been involved in the Chicago fire and the Tunguska event if Michael Landon wasn't born until 1936?
Carl, kindly blow it out your ass. This is why we don't allow you to produce my show.
And this has been Monster Chat, hosted by Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus. Thank you for joining us.
And now it's time for our featured film reviews.
Hi, hello. Is this thing on? Did I press the right button? Yeah. Okay, looks like it's on. Hi, everybody. This is Carl the Camera Monkey. Yes, normally the guy behind the camera on Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. This week, I am doing the featured film reviews because, as you may have heard, Steve the Cat is refusing to appear in this week's episode, as are his friends Guinevere and Fancy and Ravina the intern, because the cats are upset that we are now doing 2 werewolf movies tonight in combination with a werewolf movie we did a few weeks back, and we have yet to do a movie such as Cat People with Nastasha Kinski, and they think this is unfair and biased. So, not something I normally do, but I'm going to try to do the movie reviews. I have Steve's notes on these movies, so I'm just going to try to run with them. So our first featured film review for tonight is the film Howl. And there you see the poster right there, and it's not real subtle, but on the off chance that you couldn't figure it out from the poster, this is a horror creature feature. Yes, it is a werewolf film. This film was released in the year 2015, directed by Paul Hyatt, and the cast includes Ed Speleers, who you might know from the Aragon movie, which was not that good, or you probably know from Downton Abbey, Sean Pertwee, who has done a variety of things throughout his career, Holly Weston, and Shauna McDonald, who will be appearing in a movie we're going to review next week called The Descent. So a little bit of backstory here. Paul Hyatt is a special effects artist, and he is known for working on a variety of movies such as Dog Soldiers and more appropriately, The Descent, which we will be reviewing next week, which is another British horror movie, which stars Shauna McDonald. So when we put this schedule together, we weren't even aware of all the connection between this movie and the movie The Descent, which we'll be reviewing next week. We just put them both on the schedule because they're good films, and as it turns out, they are quite related. So let's talk about setting your expectations for Howl. What you should expect is an independent British creature feature about a group of train passengers stalked by a werewolf. And the reason you should watch this is because this is a very good independent creature feature, and it manages to build a suspenseful atmosphere. This film does have a lot of practical special effects, and they are good, but this is not a $200 million budget movie. It's an independent film, and they do a very good job of creating a suspenseful atmosphere and using a lot of implied fright instead of just hitting you in the face with one practical special effect after another. Although there are plenty of practical special effects in the film, but it's not a practical special effects festival. If you like The Descent, you might like this film. If you like An American Werewolf in London or The Howling, you might like this film. Basically, if you're a werewolf fan or a creature feature fan, I would recommend Howl. So let's talk about setting your expectations. This is the scale Steve likes to use. Now, this scale is not a judgment of the quality of the film. It is showing where your mind needs to be going into the film if you're going to optimize your enjoyment of the film. So on the far left side is getting yourself set to go and watch a very campy film such as Sharknado or Jason X. On the far right side of the scale, get your mind set to go watch a very serious movie such as The Silence of the Lambs. Howl is right down the center. It requires a certain amount of suspension of disbelief because it is a creature feature, it is a werewolf movie, but it is not a comedy by any means. There's like one joke in the entire film, so it's not a comedy, but it doesn't get farther to the right on the scale than I've shown it, simply because it requires a certain amount of suspension of disbelief when you do a werewolf film. Let's do a film summary. So as we said, this is an atmospheric, independent British werewolf feature directed by renowned special effects artist Paul Hyatt. in this film, nice guy railroad security guard Joe is forced to work a shift on an overnight train out of London just moments after learning that he has been passed over for a promotion, so Joe is having kind of a tough night. On the bright side, this gives him time to spend with Ellen, the tea trolley girl that Joe secretly adores. Just a few miles away from the final station, the train comes to a sudden emergency stop after striking a stag, yes, a great big old deer. And this knocks down the few remaining passengers and the members of the crew, so people are scattered, their belongings get scattered, everyone is kind of frazzled and upset at coming to a sudden stop. While Joe and Ellen tend to the rattled passengers, the driver goes out to remove debris that is stuck in the wheels, and yes, that is code for saying remove the bits of stag that are stuck in the wheels. As the driver works to clear the wheels, he accidentally draws the attention of something large, fearsome, and not human. And if you gathered from the poster that that's a werewolf, you're probably right. So let's do a creature profile for this movie. Our featured creature for this creature feature is, of course, the werewolf. There you see a picture of the werewolf from this film right there. The werewolf, of course, is part of the lycanthrope family. Their special powers include speed, strength, stealth, vicious claws and teeth, and the ability to transmit the werewolf's curse by its bite. Now, in this film, it's not made clear whether the werewolves are always werewolves or if they're people that just turn into werewolves during a full moon. They kind of imply that these are quote-unquote real werewolves, so it's people that have been mutated by some sort of virus, and they are effectively werewolves all the time now, but they were human once upon a time. But regardless of whether it's a supernatural curse or some sort of virus or some sort of genetic issue that can be transmitted by bite, you bite somebody and that person will eventually turn into a werewolf. Their signature weapons are teeth and claws, and their signature technique involves latching onto the victim's neck with its vicious teeth. Let's talk about some of the things Steve liked about this film that I can gather from going through his notes. So, first off, Steve said the atmosphere that the director sets up outside the train is perfect for a werewolf movie. It's a dark, foggy, wooded area, and it has some of the hints of deep blue that was used in so many night scenes in horror movies in the 80s and 90s. They set up the ideal spooky werewolf movie atmosphere for this film, short of actually putting it out on the moors in northern England. The film makes excellent use of suspense and scares. The practical special effects are largely good. There is little to no computer-generated special effects, or else they're good enough to not stand out. Now, I can think of one or two spots where, yeah, there was some computer-generated special effects because they're trying to show, for example, that an electrical antenna has shorted out, but it's nothing that's going to jump out and slap you in the face, and it's nothing that's going to detract from the horror movie aspect of this. To the extent that they use CGI, it's just to give you the effect of a full train that they might not have had an entire train for making the movie, for example. Even though the film was directed by a special effects artist, it does not come across as a special effects showcase where they just throw one thing after another at the audience. There is plentiful suspense, and there are plenty of implied scares. So it's not just, hey, look at this effect, now look at this effect. So it's different from, say, a movie like All Hallows Eve, which just felt like the director throwing one practical special effect after another at you, just trying to hit you with everything but the kitchen sink. This feels like an actual coherent movie that just happens to have a lot of good practical special effects. And finally, the crew and passengers are likable, and you will root for them, at least the ones you're supposed to like. Now that said, let's talk about some of the things that could have been better with the film Howl. Right off the bat, although most of the practical special effects are good, some of the full creature effects from the latter part of the film are underwhelming. Now, I am not saying they are bad, they are not bad. They're just not overwhelming. They're not the kind of thing that's going to knock you over and say, wow, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You're going to look at them and kind of say, yeah, okay, it's a werewolf. It's just not earth-shatteringly innovative, let's put it that way. The werewolf's face is likely to be a less wolfy than many are expecting, and you kind of get that from the poster here. The snout of the werewolf in this movie is not nearly as pronounced as you would expect, or as you would see in something like An American Werewolf in London. Now, that's just a matter of taste. That's just a matter of the direction that the director decided to go with this artistically, so it's not necessarily a criticism. I was fine with it. It's just some people who are fans of werewolf movies, you know, if you're looking for a more wolf-looking werewolf like American Werewolf in London, you might be a little bit disappointed. The story is fairly predictable. Hey, it's a werewolf film. They're all kind of predictable. It drags a little bit in the middle, not terribly, but a little bit. The characters in the film are exactly the assortment of characters you would expect. Now, that's not to say that they're unlikable. They're not badly acted. It's just that it's a formulaic assortment of people, and it's exactly the character archetypes that you would predict going into the film. So if someone gave you a piece of paper and said, I'm doing a werewolf movie, who are the 8 people who are going to be the victims? The list you would come up with, having seen the movie, is probably a pretty accurate prediction of what they actually cast in the movie. It's just, again, it kind of goes to the story being predictable. The characters also are kind of predictable. And finally, although the film doesn't look like a lower budget independent film in terms of cinematography and atmosphere, the fact that almost the entire film is the same small cast of characters, confined to a few train cars, gives the aroma of independent film on a budget. Now, I do not like to judge films based upon their budget. In other words, I don't like to say, well, this is a good film because they spent a lot of money. This is a bad film because they did not spend a lot of money. And this film does not look like a low-budget film. They did an outstanding job of setting up the atmosphere. The practical special effects are all good. So there's nothing in this that really screams low budget, except for the fact that the cast is just a few people, and almost the entirety of the movie takes place in a few train cars. And as much as I don't like to hold that against films, it kind of interfered with my suspension of disbelief just a little bit. It was just kind of constantly poking at the back of my head that, yeah, this is a low-budget movie, so they've just got these 3 train cars, and that's all they're using for the entire movie. If this were a bigger budget movie, there would have been an additional storyline with 1 or 2 characters, say, back at the train station wondering what has happened to the train, trying to find out. There's none of that in this film because almost the entirety of it is shot inside or outside these same 2 or 3 train cars. So let's get to Steve's scorecard for Howl. So going through his notes, kills 10, and that includes werewolf conversions. Bare breasts, there are none, although you get a glimpse of what might be some werewolf boobies. We are not going to start counting werewolf boobies on this show, guys. I am sorry, but we will never get Steve to come back from his labor dispute if we start doing that. Denogginings, none. Possumings, there is one. Yes, the stag gets hit by the train. Infuegoinatings, there is one, possibly more, but you definitely see one. Christmas treeings, there's a Christmas treeing. There is a festive display of a victim in this film. Dechomperings, I've said 1 with 3+ chompers, so you have 1 incident with at least 3 chompers removed. That'll make more sense when you watch the film. Smoosh-noodlings. Oh yes, there is a smoosh-noodling in this film. Angler fishings. There are 2. Yes, inadvertently using the flashlight to attract a predator to yourself happens twice in this film. Bambifications. Once. Yes, the tea trolley girl gets bambified at one point in this film. Burkings. There are 2. There is a character that you will want to see die in the most horrible fashion. And hot air balloonings. There is 1. Yes, the werewolf gets a grip on somebody's foot as she tries to make her way through the door, and the door closes, but her foot is still on the other side, and she starts bouncing up and down, as if by magic, but actually because the werewolf has a grip on her foot off screen. With your viewing of Howl, you also get a few bonus features. Not a ton, but a few. Including a douchebag passenger. So you might have gathered from the fact that there are a couple of Burkings in this film that there is going to be at least one douchebag passenger, and you would not be wrong. You get Granny chomping in this film, but you also get Grandpa chomping in this film. You get werewolf boot stomp beatdown. Yes, the passengers at one point gang up on the werewolf in an attempt to save themselves, get the werewolf on the ground, and they're all putting a boot stomp beatdown on the werewolf. Which of course is not successful, so they then go to werewolf axing and start hitting the werewolf with an axe. Is that successful? Well, you'll just have to watch and find out. And finally, you get live Christmas tree brunching. Now, looking at that, you probably think, oh, somebody is brunching upon a live Christmas tree, and you could not be more wrong. So, Christmas treeing is when you festively display a victim in a tree. Brunching is when you festively snack upon a victim. Live Christmas tree brunching is when you festively display a victim in a tree, then brunch upon that victim up in the tree, and the victim is still alive. Yes, it is kind of hard to watch, but it is a spectacularly effective bit of horror. So let's get to the final score for Howl. Steve's notes, apparently he gave this one 3 paws out of 4, and having watched this film, I agree with him. It is an atmospheric and very entertaining creature feature that balances suspense and implied scares with effective practical special effects. The story is a bit predictable, but you will root for the cast anyway. This is a very good film, very similar in some ways to The Descent, which we will be talking about next week. The Descent is an even better movie, so if you're only going to watch one, watch The Descent, but I do recommend both of them, so we recommend Howl, and that is our first featured film review for this evening.
And now a word from our delightful benefactors at PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
Let's get into our second featured film review for this evening. We're going to talk about the film Ginger Snaps. And there's the poster right there. This is a horror creature feature with some elements of dark comedy that was released in the year 2000, directed by John Fawcett. And the cast includes Emily Perkins, Catherine Isabel, Chris Limchi, and Mimi Rogers. Let's talk about setting your expectations for this film. What you should expect is an intelligent film that combines horror and dark humor as it follows a teenage girl's transformation into a werewolf. The reason you should watch is that this is one of the better werewolf films out there, and the film has developed a cult following. This, again, is one of those films that if you're a fan of horror movies, you need to watch once at some point, and odds are you're going to like it. It's a good film. If you like Howl, that we talked about earlier, or if you like American Werewolf in London, you'll probably like Ginger Snaps. I've also put Scream on this list. If you like Scream, you'll probably like Ginger Snaps. Scream is a slasher film, not a werewolf film, but it has kind of the same teenagers in a deathly situation vibe to it that Ginger Snaps has. So if you like the teenage antics, teenage high school drama atmosphere of Scream, then you'll probably enjoy Ginger Snaps as well. So let's talk about setting your expectations. Here's the scale that we like to use. On the left side of the scale is the mindset you want to have going into a very campy movie like Sharknado or Jason X. On the right side of the scale is the mindset you want to have going into a very serious film such as The Silence of the Lambs. Ginger Snaps is right down the middle. It is more of an independent movie than a mainstream theatrical release, but it is straight down the middle. It blends horror and comedy together, kind of like American Werewolf in London. It's not as overtly a comedy as American Werewolf in London, but there are certainly some comedic elements to this film. Let's get into a film summary. This is a Canadian creature feature with elements of dark humor that documents a young girl's transformation into a werewolf. The film follows the story of Bridget and Ginger Fitzgerald, who are two sisters who, out of boredom with their daily existence in the Canadian suburb of Bailey Downs, have developed a bizarre fascination with death. And when I say a bizarre fascination with death, for example, they're given an assignment for class to do a photo essay documenting life in Bailey Downs, and so they do numerous photos of themselves in various phases of having killed themselves through various means. So various pictures posing as dead bodies, having pretended to have killed themselves in various ways, basically to send the message that life in Bailey Downs is death. Now, obviously, the two sisters have a very close bond, but they are otherwise antisocial, so naturally the other students ostracize and bully them because of their antisocial attitude and their overall macabre style. Although I will say that the boys have started to notice Catherine Isabel's character Ginger since she started sprouting breasts. In recent days, Bailey Downs has been plagued by a rash of dog killings, the work of some unknown predator. While Ginger and Bridget are out one night, Ginger is attacked by the predator and mauled, but manages to escape. After this happens, Ginger slowly begins to undergo a physical transformation, which also affects her attitude and her mindset, and it puts her relationship with Bridget to the test. Now, if you haven't figured it out already, you can pretty much assume that she is transforming into a werewolf. And there's a picture right there of one of the werewolves from this film. The werewolf, of course, is of the lycanthrope family, and its special powers once again include speed, strength, stealth, vicious claws and teeth, the ability to transmit the werewolf's curse by its bite, although in this case, the transformation occurs very, very slowly over the course of days and days. The signature weapon of the werewolf in this film, as is usually the case, is claws and teeth. And in this particular film, the werewolf's signature technique, there's a couple, the stereotypical clamping onto the victim's neck with its teeth, but also running the victim through with its claws, basically stabbing somebody with a knife hand with the clawed hand. Let's talk about things I liked about this film. It is well acted and it portrays a very well-developed bond between Bridget and Ginger. It is a very well-written, intelligent blend of horror and dark comedy. By making the film focus on Ginger's slow transformation and making it focus on the relationship between Bridget and Ginger, the film avoids some of the predictability that's associated with traditional werewolf films. So this film is less predictable than some because it biases itself a little more towards character study and a little less towards creature feature mayhem and action. The scene where Ginger is initially attacked and mauled, I thought was particularly intense and well done. When I watched this film the most recent time around, I made a specific note about this that, wow, that scene is actually really intense. The film is a bit of a slower burn than your typical creature feature, so it's going to have fewer kills, but it's going to have more character development. I liked that as a kind of welcome change versus a lot of the cookie cutter films that you see on free streaming services. And the film gives up some action elements in exchange for a more intelligent story, which again I considered a plus when compared to a lot of the cookie cutter creature features that are available on free streaming services. Things that could have been better, or things that some people might take issue with. Right off the top, Bridget and Ginger's parents are a little bit comedically over the top in this film when compared to the rest of the film. They kind of stand out a little bit and not necessarily in a great way. The mother becomes more of a redeeming character towards the end of the film, but they are kind of one-dimensional and they feel like a little bit of overdose of comic relief from time to time. The film is a bit of a slower burn than your typical creature feature with fewer kills and more character development. Now, we mentioned that before, and I mention it here because for some people it may feel like it drags a bit in the middle as a result of this. Also, we said earlier that the film gives up some action elements in exchange for a more intelligent story. Now, I enjoyed that as kind of a change of pace, but some people might not like that. It might not appeal to somebody who is more interested in a creature feature, action feature kind of film. The use of a werewolf transformation as a metaphor for puberty and menstruation, frankly, it feels a bit obvious. And finally, this is a moderately budgeted film. From what I've read, the budget for this film was like $4.5 million, so it's not something that was made for $50,000 and shot with one handheld camera, but it's not a big budget major studio release either. As a result, the practical special effects are decent, but they're not anything exceptional, particularly the final creature effect at the end of the film, which you saw a couple of slides back. To me, it was underwhelming. It wasn't bad. It didn't bother me, it just didn't wow me. Let's get to Steve's scorecard for Ginger Snaps. Now, since this is a bit of a slower paced film with a bit more character development, the scorecard is a little shorter than we have for many movies we've done on Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Number of kills, 10, but that includes dogs and werewolves. Bare breasts, again, I'm going to say 0, although technically there are a couple of werewolf boobies, but I am not going to get into counting werewolf boobies. I'm sorry, just not going to do it. Possumings, 1. Instubinatings, 2. Diggin' clonkings, 1. Catfights, and when we say catfights, I do not mean a fight between two cats. I mean a fight between two teenage girls. Yes, there is a cat fight that breaks out in the middle of a field hockey game. And finally, willy malfunctions. Yes, you are treated to a willy malfunction in this film. I'm not going to describe it other than to say that it happened. You'll just have to watch to see exactly what happens. But with your viewing of Ginger Snaps, you also get some bonus features such as Dog carcasses aplenty. Yes, some sort of predator is running loose, killing dogs in the neighborhood, and you are treated to many dog carcasses throughout the film. You get dog-kicking action. Yes, once Ginger starts undergoing her transformation, the neighborhood dogs become much less friendly to her. You get vestigial tails, and who doesn't love a pretty woman with a vestigial tail? You get menstruation lectures, and who doesn't love those? You get a Tupperware container full of leftover fingers. Good. You get the world's most supportive mom. Mimi Rogers playing Bridget and Ginger's mother in this film. Again, like I said, she's a bit over the top in terms of comic relief, but she really takes an interesting turn at the end of the film. And I won't spoil it for you, other than to say that it was kind of pleasantly surprised that the twist that she took. You get sexually transmitted werewolfism, and who doesn't love that? Well, actually, lots of us don't love that. And finally, you get the classic quote from Catherine Isabel playing Ginger, quote, "I can't have a hairy chest, B, that's effed." Yes, famous quote. So, Steve's final score for Ginger Snaps, and of course Steve is not here, this is Carl doing the review, but this is Carl's summary of Steve's final score for Ginger Snaps. We're going to give this one 2.5 paws out of 4. I kind of expected to give this one 3 coming into this episode, but when I went back and rewatched the movie, I knocked it down to 2.5. I will say this is an intelligent blend of horror and dark humor with excellent acting and excellent character development, but the slower pace of the film may disappoint viewers expecting more creature feature action. So it's one of those films that I liked it more the first time I watched it than when I watched it the second time around. And I'm not saying I did not enjoy it the second time around. I just wasn't as over the moon about it the second time around as I was the first time. It ended up being a little slower than I remembered. So I give it 2.5 paws out of 4. If you said you wanted to give it 3 paws out of 4, I wouldn't really argue with you. It's kind of a matter of preference. But I do recommend Ginger Snaps. It's a very intelligent, very interesting film. Definitely recommend you watch it. It is a cult classic, and that is our featured film review for Ginger Snaps. Well, we're almost to the end of this week's episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, but before we go, this is the part of the show where we normally talk about other stuff Steve watched this week. Well, Steve and the cast have not yet come back from their labor stoppage, so I am Carl, I am the showrunner, and my friend Crimson Meerkat is here with me, so we're just going to quickly talk about some other stuff that we watched this week. Number 1, The Resonator, Miskatonic U. Now, at the time we're recording this was available free with ads on Pluto TV. This is a low-budget version of From Beyond from Full Moon Productions that provides a different take on the Lovecraft story. So we did the Stuart Gordon version of From Beyond earlier this season. This is a much lower budget version from Full Moon Productions. If you're not familiar with Full Moon Productions, they're one of those studios, like Shout Factory and The Asylum and everything else. Normally I stay away from stuff from Full Moon Productions, but I wanted to give this one a shot. And I will say, this film had subpar production values, subpar acting, subpar special effects, but ended up being more interesting than I expected anyway. So I would cautiously recommend it if you can handle low-budget Lovecraft. My goodness, do not watch this instead of Stuart Gordon's From Beyond. But if you're a Lovecraft fan and you're looking to just kind of stream something free and low budget and a little bit cheesy and a little bit sexy, you could do worse than The Resonator. So what say you, Meerkat? What do you think of this one?
Hello, yes, this is Crimson Meerkat, and I just want to say I am here under duress. They will not validate my parking unless I come back and do this segment. And as much as I just want to leave because these people have been very insulting to me, I really need that parking validated because, I don't have a whole lot of cash right now, and don't look at me like that. Yes, I am a successful writer. I do own a car. I have a pre-owned Yugo in excellent condition. 17 more payments and that baby's all mine, man. Anyway, The Resonator, Miskatonic U. I found this film quite offensive. This film implies that aliens and things from outer space are actually what our brain processes when we encounter beings from another dimension. It is obviously a propaganda effort funded by the alien conspiracy. We know that is not true. Aliens are real. There is no other plane of existence that is penetrating our consciousness through our pineal gland, and for crying out loud. And let me tell you, The one scene in this film with that topless, sexy woman all dripping in oil with a horseshoe crab shell on her head and tentacles draping down, quite obviously supposed to be a reference to the tentacle women of Nebulon 3. Let me tell you, man, I've been kidnapped by the tentacle women of Nebulon 3 at least twice. They are not nearly that hospitable. This whole thing is a propaganda effort and it just sickens me.
And with that, we will move on to our second film, Dracula 2000. At the time we recorded this was available free with ads on Pluto TV. Dracula 2000 is Wes Craven's modern take upon the Dracula legend, and I say modern in quotes because the film was released in 2000, and yes, folks, if you look at your calendars, you are now closer to the year 2040 than you are to the year 2000. Now, this was a reasonably big budget effort as horror movies go at the time. The cast features a lot of recognizable faces, including a, well, barely recognizable Gerard Butler, because this was made roughly 20 years and 350,000 calories ago. Christopher Plummer, so Captain Von Trapp, returns to play Van Helsing. Omar Epps, who you've seen in a variety of things. Danny Masterson, whom you will remember from that 70s show. Danny Masterson, of course, is a Scientology enthusiast who totally left the Netflix show The Ranch of his own free will and totally was not fired because of those rape allegations. Also includes Jerry Ryan, who played Seven of Nine on Star Trek Enterprise, and Nathan Fillion. Somehow I missed this movie when it came out. It's a bigger budget film than I expected when I went and watched it. Now, it is predictable because it is the umpteenth millionth take on the Dracula legend. It has too much CGI special effects because it is a 2000 movie, and it was when that whole interchange between practical special effects and computer graphics was in full swing. But overall, if you like vampire movies, you could do worse. This one's actually worth watching. So, Meerkat, this one features a Klingon and a Borg and Captain Reynolds from Firefly, so I'm sure you enjoyed this one. What do you say?
Oh, sure. I was wondering how long it would be before you started mocking me. Sure, make fun of the guy who writes about outer space. No, I do not watch your Space Trek shows. I do not watch Star Wars Wizard Jedi shows and things like that. I do not watch your Firefly. I am a credentialed writer. I am a serious writer, man, and I talk about serious subjects. The alien conspiracy is real, and distracting us with discussion of Space Trek and Star Wars is just, it's just disgusting. And oh, by the way, Jerry Ryan was in Star Trek Voyager, not Star Trek Enterprise. Don't ask me how I know that. There is a restraining order involved.
And that brings us to our third film, The Blackwell Ghost. At the time we recorded this was available free with ads on Tubi. I believe it was also available on Amazon Prime. It kind of comes and goes from Amazon Prime. The Blackwell Ghost is a found footage mockumentary of a filmmaker's investigation of a haunted house. Now, this one's a little different from other found footage movies in that this one really tries to fool you into thinking it's a real documentary. It clearly is not, but it tries very, very hard to fool you into thinking it. It's not sold as a mockumentary. It is sold as a legitimate documentary, with no cast list, and it's only an hour long, so it tries to fool you into thinking this is a real paranormal investigation. Do not be fooled. And if you watch it for more than a few minutes, you will not be fooled because this is not how real people actually behave. Meh. If you really enjoy found footage supernatural films like Paranormal Activity, you might like this one. You can do better. If you're in the mood for found footage paranormal stuff, I would recommend Hollow's Grove or Grave Encounters instead of this movie. This movie's not terrible. It's not really exciting. I guess the good news is that if you invest in it, it's only 59 minutes long, so it's over pretty quickly. So, Meerkat, what's your take on ghosts? What is Crimson Meerkat's take on the supernatural and ghosts and such?
Ghosts and the supernatural? Are you honestly asking me questions about Casper and those ghosts from the Haunted Mansion? Let me tell you something. The aliens that are abducting us and probing us and experimenting on our nether regions, that's a real thing, man. That is a real existential threat to our civilization. And you're distracting us with your discussion of ghosts and goblins and vampires. You're all part of the problem. You're in on it, aren't you? How much did they pay you? How much did they pay you to distract people from discussion of the truth? Let me tell you, man, just validate my parking ticket and let me get out of here. And yeah, I did watch this movie and I didn't care for it. It was kind of boring. Just stamp my ticket and let me get out of here. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
And on that note, that wraps up other things we watched this week. Thank you for joining us.
Well, that brings us to the end of our latest episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoyed the show, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow. You can find us on Facebook at Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. And yes, that's Tales with an AILS. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively on PBDC TV. Whether you're interested in horror, true crime, weird history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have something for you on PBDC TV. If you are not familiar with PBDC TV, it is easy to find. We are on the World Wide Web at pbdctv.com, and we are on YouTube at Psycho Bunny DC. We also have a large presence on Facebook. You can find the mothership at PBDC TV, or you can go directly to dedicated pages for channels such as Psycho Bunny Death Cult, Psychomantum 13, and Roots Bleed Red. Each channel has a slightly different atmosphere, but they all are a part of the PBDC TV broadcast collective. The end of the year is drawing to a close, but there are still a number of great horror movies for us to discuss on Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Next week our 2 featured films will take us into the mountains of Appalachia, so we hope to see you then. In the meantime, thank you once again for joining us. We hope that you all stay safe and have an enjoyable week. We will see you again soon. Good night.